All right, guys, we're back. Another edition of Talking Preps. Chris, we're going to get right to it. Your eight-man rankings did not change. You still have Wayne Christian Halifax Academy at the top of your eight-man. And I want to try to find your D2 bracket. No change in that either.
No, but the good thing about both of those brackets, and we'll have a chance to talk about them more in depth later.
Hmm?
A lot of those teams are all playing each other this week, so
Yeah,
we're definitely going to see a change next week.
yeah, absolutely. Big change next week. And then the private D1 bracket, again, no change. The top four playing each other this week, to your point.
Yeah,
So,
I was going to say Providence Day, Charlotte Christian going at it, Raven Gap, and Christ School. I think it's going to be a pretty good game, so I can't wait to see how those come out this week.
all right, well, let's talk just real briefly about your 1A bracket. I mean, your private school bracket, not your 1A bracket. Just give me a quick synopsis. What do you see here with these two games or these four games?
Well, you see Christ School going over to Raven Gap. That was about a 20-point game early in the season. I have a feeling that's going to be a tougher game this week than what we expect. I don't necessarily see Christ School going up there and pulling off the upset of the century. But I definitely think that it's going to be a heck of a ball game, and I still think that next week we're going to have the Super Bowl, the NCISA going head to head there with Providence Day and Raven Gap. So you know what, get your popcorn ready and stay tuned. The D2 rankings, I think that's up in the air. The team I still like is Trinity Christian out of Fayetteville. But we'll see. All these schools, all these teams, they're really seasoned at this point of the year.
All right, let's see what Cam had to say on this one, and then we're going to go right into his 1A picks, and then we're going to come back and talk about the 1A bracket.
All right, guys, I'm back here to do some more bracketology, if you will. We'll start off with the private schools. Last week I only missed one game, and this week we're looking at Division One. I'm gonna have to go with Raven Gap and Providence Day. I think those were at the start of the playoffs. They were the two favorites to make it to the state championship. Very powerful teams. Providence Day is their one loss, obviously, to Raven Gap. But then moving to Division Two, Hickory Grove. I think they could make some noise and beat Ash School. I mean, that was the only game I missed last week was the Hickory Grove game. So I actually got Hickory Grove going to Ash School and beating them. And then High Point Christian, I think they're going to be a little bit too tough for Trinity Christian. I think their defense will be able to really cause some trouble for Trinity Christian, so I'm going to pick High Point Christian there. All right, and so as we move to the NCHSA 1A playoffs, that was actually my best bracket last week. I went 30-2 in the picks. Now, granted, that was with some buys, and yes, I did give myself those games, even though no one had to play. But as we look at Mountain Island Charter and Robbinsville there, I think Robbinsville, they're that team's my favorite in the 1A. But then I've got Swain County over Bessemer City. I've actually got Starmount over Mountain Heritage there, and then North Rowan over Caribbean Community. I've got Eastern Randolph over Hayesville, and then that Thomasville and Albemarle game. When I looked at it, I think Albemarle they're really talented, but I think Thomasville, I think they get it done on the road. I've got Murphy over Bishop McGinnis, and then Mount Airy over Mitchell. Moving over to the East, everybody said it all season and even starting the playoffs. Tarboro, probably the favorite in the East, so I've got them. I've got North Duplin over Southeast Halifax. Beargrass didn't have a game last week, so they're going to be fresh. But Rosewood, they've been battle tested. That 6-5 record is really not indicative of how well that team has played. But I still think Beargrass being, having some fresh legs under them, I think they're going to get the job done there. I've got Northside over East Bladen, Wilson Prep over Weldon, Northmore over Bertie, um, Lakewood over Perquimans, and then West Columbus over Pender.
All right, we heard from Cam Guru. What you got here?
Hey, 30-2. I'm going to give Cam all the credit in the world. He must be the true guru in training. It's a 30-2. Good job, Cam. Even though you
In
did talk
training,
about it,
in
still
training.
pretty strong.
What games stick out to you on both sides of the bracket here? Give me one or two.
The number one game that I really like this week in the 1A is Starmount heading up to Mountain Heritage. That's two veteran coaches, two veteran teams. I think that's going to be a really fun game in Burnsville. That's a game that I really wish that I could get to. And I want to say also that Thomasville Albemarle game, that just has nostalgia written all over it. The game in the East bracket, though, that really sticks out to me is East Bladen at Northside. I know a lot of people are going to jump on that Northside thinking that that's the safe pick at 8-2. But I really like Robbie Priest and that East Bladen team to make a deep, deep run in the 1A East. So we'll see.
All right, let's see what Cam had going in the. Oh, wait a minute. We got to go to our Deer Park water before we come to Cam. Be back after this break.
Deer Park is celebrating its 150th anniversary.
Deer Park? That's good water.
You can taste how pure Deer Park is.
Deer Park, that's good water.
Deer Park, that's still good water.
All right, so then as we move to 2A, I went 28-4 last week. So as we look at the brackets here, we got Reedsville over West Stokes in the West. We've got Brevard over North Stanley. That Monroe team, they're one of the favorites, I think, to win the whole thing. So I've got Monroe over West Lincoln. Burns and Bunker Hill. Now, this Burns is a very battle-tested team playing in Cleveland County, but I still think Bunker Hill at home can get the job done there. I think I've got East Surrey in that game. You know, it might be an upset on paper, but I think East Surrey is playing really well at the right time of year. And then give me Randleman over Forest Hills, Shelby over Lincolnton, Salisbury over Maiden. And then as we move to the East, the Guru says Clinton's the odds-on favorite to win 2A. I tend to agree with him. I think Monroe and Clinton would be a great game in the state championship, but I've got Clinton over Beddingtonfield, Cummings over Southeast Alamance, Wallace Rose Hill over Hartford County. I've got Nash Central over West Craven. I've got Southwest Edgecombe over Farmville in a game that could be closer than many might think. East Duplin over Whiteville, Princeton over Lewisburg, and then Northeastern over Holmes.
All right. Well, Chris, we're going to get your breakdown real quick, but here's your rankings. You still got Clinton and Monroe at the top. Do you expect all these teams to be around next week?
I do. Although there are some compelling some games, as he mentioned, I do think that these teams right here are pretty much on a collision course to go to the deeper rounds.
Sam thinks those top two are going to play for the title. Sam's been talking Monroe since he beat Monroe head up earlier.
Yeah, I think so. I think 2A is probably one of the most clear-cut divisions, and 3A as well. But I do think that those games, most of those top-ranked teams are going to advance. I'm looking here at the games, kind of the most compelling game. He mentioned he thought East Surrey was the more seasoned teams or maybe coming on at the right time. I do think East Surrey is a team that is peaking. But, man, I want to tell you what, I think that Community School, the Davidson team, I just don't know if you've got enough offensive firepower to beat them. And playing at home on that turf, I think that's a dangerous team.
Yeah.
They might throw the ball better than anybody in North Carolina. The way that they scheme it, they're pretty amazing to watch.
That's high praise. What about the East side, Chris? What sticks out?
The side on the East, the one team that I think could falter could be our defending state champions in East Duplin, going on to face a really tough Whiteville team. If you go back and look at my preseason rankings, Whiteville was ranked in the top 5 in the 2A, and that's a very dangerous team. They've got the one loss two losses now earlier in the year, but that's probably the most compelling game there in Eastern North Carolina.
All right. Well, this week we got our other guru, Rick Lewis, on to talk about basketball with Randall Clark. So we're going to get the girls' basketball breakdown. We'll be back with 3A right after this. All right, guys, we're back. It's got my basketball crew here. Is it that time of year already?
It's getting there, slowly but surely. Practice started today, so it should be a fun one.
All right, we got Randall and Rick, got two basketball gurus. Randall, we got our girls basketball preseason rankings. Let's put them up on the screen. Anything jump out you there? Any surprises?
I think everything's pretty much status quo. You go with, state champions and state runners up, in a lot of these top spots. Everyone knows that Grace Christian is led by Sarah Strongs. They should be good. Canaan School reloading. They're going to be a very young team. I'm excited to watch them. Providence Day, I think, is the strongest that they've been in a long time. And then, of course, Northside Christian, the defending state champs, coming in number 5. I think they still have a little.
You saying Providence Day is back?
It's going to be.
Not that they went anywhere, but.
Not to the glory days, but I think they're gonna be a tough out this year. I'll put it that way.
Okay. That'll definitely be interesting to look at. And then we also got our 1A and our 2A rankings. I guess Salisbury is not much of a surprise. North Pitt with your girls of Mary is there at number 4. And then Bishop McGinnis, the heavyweight on the 1A side, Is anybody going to catch them in 1A?
I don't think anybody catches Bishop McGinnis, and I think for a basketball fan like myself, a North Pitt C4 rematch, uh, in the state in the regional final would be in the semifinals would be a fun one for sure.
Shelby doesn't have any more Hollyfields. They out of Hollyfields.
They're out of Hollyfields right now, so I don't know what Shelby's going to look like. That's another interesting situation. They've had Hollyfields there for what seems like forever, so
Yeah,
I'll be
they
interested to see how they
definitely
look there.
they definitely have. And then we'll flip over to the 4A girls and 3A girls rankings. Panther Creek, Malik Creek, right there, Charlotte Catholic. Panther Creek's defending state champs, so they're gonna do it again.
I mean, they return a lot of firepower. Mallet Creek is reloaded. Charlotte Catholic always going to be a tough out with 34 down there in the middle, and Watauga still has Kate Sears. So when you look at those top four, very interesting lists, and I'm sure when Lake Norman sees that they're down at 7, they're gonna have something to say about that. So I think it's going to be a very very fun tournament run in the class of 4A on the girls side.
You flip it on the 3A, West Lincoln and East Lincoln rather, and West Rand met in the semifinals last year, the Western Regional Championship game. Now they're 1-2 in the state. You think one of those is going to be the state champ?
Yeah, I mean that's the same bet would be to answer that question simply yes.
Answered yes. All right, and then the last thing we're going to look at on the girls' side is our preseason All-State team. I'm sorry, I'm stuck in my throat. Preseason All-State. There we go. Taylor Barner. We just talked about Panther Creek. Ella Hobbs. Rick, you do a little girl stuff now. What do you think about this list? Did we get it right or we get it wrong?
Looks pretty good to me. Now I haven't seen the Panther Creek girls play, but Ella Hobbs is very tremendous player there, and also the lady from Bishop McGinnis. I've seen them play, so I would agree with them.
Yeah, Taylor Barner is one of the fastest players I've seen. She was incredible in the state championship game, and they beat Lake Norman. She kind of willed that team to a win, and when Lake Norman made that big pride run, they would make. She came up with play after play after play to kind of push them back. Randall, just your thoughts here on this list.
I think the balance of the list is what I'm really excited about. I think like if you were actually to roll these 10 girls out onto the floor, like I don't think they would miss a beat. I think they could all play together. A lot of interchangeable pieces. I think you have bigs inside that enjoy being bigs. You have wings that can slash. You got wings who can shoot, and then you got point guards who can control the flow of the game, and then you got do it all Sarah Strong, and she can you can just plug and play that one, and whatever you need her to do, she's gonna go get it done.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing how the season goes out. Looking forward to having you guys back on the show when we start up Talking Press basketball in January. So you guys get your batteries running, and after Christmas, we're going to toss it up and do it every week.
So now on to the 3A. I went 27-5 last week in the 3A. So as we look at the East, I'll go East first here. I've got Havelock over Cape Fear. I think this is where J.H. Rose playoff run will come to an end against North Brunswick. I've got Scotland County over Southern Durham. I'm going to pick Northern Nash over Southern Nash this week. Northern Nash's lone loss was to Southern Nash, and I think it's hard to beat a good team twice. I think Northern Nash will pull off the upset. I've got Jacksonville at Southeast Alamance. I've got Jacksonville winning that game. Then I've got Sanford over Harnett Central, Fike over Currituck County, and then 71st, one of the toughest teams in the East, I think, and will eventually come out of the East, but I've got them over Burlington Williams. So then as we shift over to the West, I don't think there's a lot of teams right now that could beat Crest. They're really firing on all cylinders. I've got Crest over Statesville, got West Charlotte over High Brighton. Again, another one of those things where it's hard to beat a good team twice. I've got Northwest Cabarrus at Robinson, going to Robinson and pulling off the upset there. I've got Dudley over Central Davidson. I've got East Lincoln over West Henderson in an upset there. I've got Oak Grove over Pisgah. I've actually got Kings Mountain over AC Rental, excuse me. And then Hickory over North Lincoln.
All right. Well, Chris, here your rankings. Here your rankings in 3A. Sam's nodding his head. Here your rankings in 3A. There's no West Charlotte, Sam. But what do you think, Chris?
We're better off that way. We're better off that way.
There's still no West Charlotte, but Sam's got plenty of time to work his way in there, and I definitely feel like he will. He's got High Brighton again. He faced them in the second round last year and won 56-7, and I could see a similar score maybe. Although High Brighton, I think, is a little bit better than they were last year, Sam. So
Yeah,
make sure you take it.
they'll be wanting no dubsies this time.
Yeah,
We're a little better too.
You see Sam being real quiet. All right, Chris, give me the breakdown. What you see?
Some really good teams. I think 3A is fairly clear cut, but it's also really, really competitive. There's still about 25 to 30 really, really solid teams in 3A that I really like. And again, we've got some great matchups here. Looking at the East, I agree with Cam that the most compelling matchup is that rematch from 3 weeks ago with Northwest Cabarrus and Robinson. Unlike Cam, I'm not going to put my Homer hat on. I think that Robinson's probably the better team, although I think that's going to be a heck of a ball game that may come down to, one or two turnovers or, one or two game plays may be the result in that game. I really, if I could clone myself, I'd want to be up there in the mountains to see AC Reynolds taking on Kings Mountain. I think that's probably the best game in the West. Looking at the East, there's a ton of really good games. He's right. That Southern Nash, Northern Nash is probably the top game in the East. I do think that it's tough to beat the same team twice. I think that Northern Nash would probably be just a hair favored. But you got two great coaches and Coach Batchelor and Coach Ferris going head to head. I think that's going to be a big game.
All right. Okay, so now we're going to go to our boys basketball preview with Rick and Randall, and then we're going to come back. We're going to talk about the Fight Club right after this break from Deer Park Water.
Deer Park is celebrating its 150th anniversary. Let's take a look back.
Deer Park, that's good water.
You can taste how pure Deer Park is.
Deer Park, that's good water.
Filtered naturally beneath the earth
for a crisp, refreshing taste.
Deer Park.
Deer Park.
Deer Park. Deer Park.
That's still good water.
After 150 years, there's only one thing left to say. Deer Park, that's still good water.
How did you all get in here?
All right, guys, got my man Rick Lewis, Randall Clark here. Let's talk about some boys' private schools. Rick, are you ready? Tell me about the private school state rankings on the boys' side.
Ready for the season to start. I think basically Christ School is defending state champion. I think they're the favorite to win it again. And of course, the Burlington School has had a quite little run, and they just keep reloading every year. So I think the first two, I think as far as the 4A and the 2A, I think they're favored to win the state championship in their respective class. Cannon has Austin Swartz, and I think, he can help lead Cannon to a competitive, and it could be one of the teams that would be favored to play Christ School for the state championship. Ron Johnson has done a really good job at Providence Day in the 4A. And then my favorite to win the 3A is Gaston Christian. Chris Duhan has done a remarkable job over there at Gaston Christian. I think it's going to be their turn this year at the 3A level.
Wow, that's very, very, very impressive that he can come in and do that. Let's take a look at, Rick, the 1A, 2A rankings for the boys. Let's start on the 2A side. You got Drake Powell and Northwood at number 1.
Well, the 2A is absolutely loaded. I think you can look at really the top 4 teams that could be legitimate, contenders for the state championship. But, Northwood was in the 3A last year. They were runner-up to Central Cabarrus, and of course, they dropped down to 2A. You have a consensus top 10 player in the country in Drake Powell, who's committed to UNC. And then with Reidsville, you got the 2 super sophomores who are also phenomenal, football players. And then, of course, Farmville Central is going to be Farmville Central. And then Salisbury has Jaden Jute Harris. So I think those would be the 4 that would be the favorites in the 2A.
But tell me about the 1A. You got Wilson Prep at number 1 in the 1A. Are they going to just kind of sweep to it again? And they won like the last 37 in a row?
They're the heavy favorite. They've done a remarkable job. Coach Atkinson's done a good job down there. They've won, the state championship. I think, in the West, you have Bishop McGinnis. Is a strong team each and every season. And then I think Thomasville could be an up-and-coming team. And then, of course, Bertie would be the other team from the East that could challenge Wilson Prep for a state title.
So it's Wilson Prep and everybody else, but you just don't want to say it like that.
Well, they're the heavy favorites.
You heard that, Randall. He didn't really want to say it.
Yeah, he didn't want to go out there and just put it out there like that.
All right, let's talk about the big boys. Let's talk about the 4A and the 3A. You got 3 Charlotte teams, 1, 2, and 3, and another one at 5. Is this another one of those years for the Mecklenburg County area?
I tell you what, the the 4A is absolutely loaded in the western part of the state with Myers Park defending state champions. I mean, what other public school team can say they have 3 high major prospects on their roster? You have Bishop Boswell that's going to Tennessee, Sir Muhammad going to Notre Dame. Sadiq White is a consensus top 20 player, and they also have another Division I prospect on their lineup as Ashton King. So, on paper, they're going to be the heavy favorite. Now, with North Mecklenburg, they have Isaiah Evans going to Duke. If there's one player who can carry a team, the state championship, it is Isaiah Evans. He's one of these guys that can put up 50 points any game and will be one of the toughest defenders in the state of North Carolina.
Randall, who's the biggest threat to stop Myers Park from being the first Charlotte Mecklenburg team to repeat in about 30 years?
I think North Met. I think where Isaiah Evans can score from on the floor and get into his spots and really just being able to fill up the basket, I think that's the biggest threat to me. I'm really, he's got a little bit of help this year with Chandler coming over there, so it's going to be interesting. Hopefully we get to see that matchup again in the finals, in the semifinals. Sorry.
Then we got Central Cabarrus on the other side. They were unbeaten. Rick, I think you view Central Cabarrus as the heavy favorite in that classification as well, correct?
I'm going to go with Central Cabarrus, who was my favorite last year. The remarkable thing about Central Cabarrus, they've won over 60 games in the last 2 years. Go ahead and mark it down. They're going to win 90 games over the last 3 years. One thing about Coach Baker's done a remarkable job. And here's an interesting stat with the Carson twins. You got Carson and Chase.
Yeah.
They are so talented. And here's the thing about it. They just win. If you look at their high school team, they win. If you look at their travel ball team, they beat all the shoe company teams during the course of the season. They won there. They won the Hoop State Fall League Championship once again. And what was even more remarkable, now we did put the Daniel twins on the same team at the top 80, but they also won the championship at the top 80. So here's 2 young men. All they do is win, and they just play a unusual game of basketball that it's fun to watch, and I think they're going to be the heavy favorite.
All right, lightning round, boys preseason all-state team. Randall, did Rick get it right?
I like this team a lot. I think another team that's very well balanced, a lot of scoring. I mean, we talked about a lot of these guys. I think Paul McNeil is the guy who we didn't mention so far tonight. A kid that can really score the basketball. Was really good last year, getting downhill and back again for a Richmond senior team that hopes to make another championship run.
Yeah, well, it's going to be another fun season of boys basketball. I'm excited to have you 2 guys come on and talk about it. We're going to start the show after January, so after Christmas, you guys get the batteries revved up. Are you excited, Rick, to come on and talk some hoops every week?
Oh, I'm excited. This is my favorite time of year.
All right, fellas. Thanks a lot.
And then, so as everyone likes to call it, the 4A Fight Club, I went 27-5 in 4A as well. So let's get right to it. I'll start in the East again. I've got Rolesville. They're my favorite to come out of the East. I've got Rolesville over Wake Forest. I've got Ashley over Fuquay Varina. I've got Cardinal Gibbons. Yes, Nick Drew will get the job done against Millbrook. Alex Batch, you can thank me for picking them later. I've actually got Clayton over Pinecrest. I think Scott Chadwick's got those guys looking good at the right time of the year. I've got Hoggard over Jordan, Laney over Apex Friendship, Newbern over New Hanover, and then Cleveland over Leesville Road. So then shifting to the West, I only missed 1 game in the 4A West last week. So I've got Weddington in a very close game over Chambers. I know a lot of the folks over at Chambers are not going to be happy that I picked against them, but I think if they're both playing their best, I think Weddington's just a little bit better. Then I've actually got Charlotte Catholic going up to TC Roberson and getting the job done again there. I think Charlotte Catholic got a very good draw where they were seated. I've got Huff over Porter Ridge, Grimsley over Sun Valley. In Mooresville, they had a much closer game than I thought they would against A.L. Brown, but I'm still going to pick them anyway over Mount Tabor. And then I've got Butler over West Forsyth, East Forsyth over Independence, even though I think Independence can give them some trouble, but I just think East Forsyth, they're really explosive on offense. And then I've got Mallard Creek over Watauga.
All right, well, there you have it. Here are the rankings, Chris. Cardinal Gibbons back in the rankings. Nick Drew's defense.
Yeah, Nick Drew's defense is really turning it on here late in the year. But I like that Cardinal Gibbons team. I think that's a team in the East. It's going to make a deep run. I think the bracket sets up really favorable for them. Of course, they're going to have to get through a really strong Roseville team, most likely. But the 4A Fight Club, as we like to call it, is definitely that this time of year. We're starting to really see these matchups take place. Big games in the West, I think next week is the week we're going to really start getting the really big games, as we like to call it, because I like to call big games and then big games. And, the game that I've got my eyes looking on this week is Independence taking on East Forsyth. I think that's probably the best game in the West. I like Indy in that game. I know that Coach Todd Willard's probably going to be mad at me for saying that, but for some reason, my gut tells me Independence is probably the better team. And in the East, you got some great matchups. I think the best one's going to be, though, Coach Scott Chadwick taking that Clayton team on the road to face Pinecrest. Again, I said it last week. Look at the record. Stats don't lie. Clayton is not a good team on the road, playing a very good team at home. That's going to make for a really good game.
All right. Well, guys, we are going to announce our Mr. Football. We brought it down to 8 players. You guys do such a good job researching, and Grice stays up to all times in the morning, looking at stats and looking at how guys do in key games. How hard was it, Grice, to get down to 8?
It was tough. I mean, you've got a lot of great players. Even you're looking at players and trying to look at them through a fresh lens of just looking at them through this season. You have even, guys that I think, especially we talk about it, Grinder, on the defensive side, where this player is an incredible player, but if I'm going to double and triple team this kid, he's not going to have the prerequisite stats in order to be considered. So it takes a lot of consideration and really just a fresh look and just a lot of input from you guys. I mean, I'm pounding you guys, daily with questions and reaching out to you, Langston calling me, interrupting me at work, with key things there. So, I mean, I think it creates a great conversation, but ultimately through it all, I feel confident that every year we get it right with Mr. Football.
All right, let's find out who are the Elite 8 and Mr. Football.
What's going on, everybody? Talking Preps, Mr. Football update. I've got the guru in training, Cameron Williams, here with me. Cameron, how's it going?
Going good. Ready to see who we've got on the list, and I know you're breaking it down even further in the near future, so let's get right to it.
All right, let's drop this final 8 here. Well, this Elite 8 finalists, again, we've got some names that you know and maybe a few that you haven't. We'll start at the bottom of the list again, with these 8 finalists here. We've got Jordan Shipp. I mean, again, we've known about Jordan Shipp, UNC commit at receiver. Big time regular season he had this year, as I jokingly call him, as Jaden Davis' favorite target. If you've heard him on Grice's Gyms after we pressed who he liked. I think Jordan Shipp's that guy. But Cameron, talk about what you've seen from Jordan Shipp this year to continue off a pretty explosive junior year.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, he's just that guy, and it's like there's 2 different modes. There's like regular Jordan, and then there's like activated Jordan. And when he gets that look in his eye, he's just going to go up and make a play over anybody. Saw several of their games this year already where he draw a double team, but he just go up and get it over guys. So I mean, very viable candidate for Mr. Football, and be interested to see how he continues throughout the playoffs.
Definitely. We got here on the list as well, Gabe Bolivar out of Pine Lake Prep. Again, maybe a name you haven't heard of, down in the 2A ranks, but this guy's had a phenomenal year. He's a Grice's Gyms alumni this year. At the end of the regular season, his total of 24-30 was good to finish 5th in the nation. We can talk about big-time numbers and big-time performances, no matter what's been going on. And they had a QB injury, but he still continued at the clip he's gone through all year. So I look forward, again, these numbers. We have the final numbers up here from this week's performances, but at the end of the regular season, he was at a big-time level. Let's also go forward here to Mason Fortune. This finalist last year for Mr. Football. What if I told you through the regular season that his completion percentage and his touchdowns were tracking at a higher level with also less interceptions? That speaks to the quality of this list. Mason's done all he could do this year. He's done even better. But again, the quality on this list, he still made the Elite 8. But I got to admit, it was a little bit harder this year.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see what he can do this week. Got another rematch in the playoffs with Cardinal Gibbons. They knocked off Cardinal Gibbons last year, but I mean, you just look at his numbers. I mean, 2,817 yards. I know this is going to be updated, but I mean, he's just firing on all cylinders right now. And if they can get that win over Cardinal Gibbons, that'll definitely boost him, at least in the Mr. Football Award finalist rankings.
For sure. Let's go to this middle tier here. So we've got Jaden Alford out of Roseville. We've talked a lot about Braden Atkinson. Clearly, one of his favorite targets is a top 5 receiver here that has been very big for them as Roseville has done a great job under first-year coach Rainier Rackley. You look at Jonathan Paylor, getting big-time performance, NC State commit. He can be in the backfield. He can go catch the football. He's done stuff wherever he's needed for that Burlington Cummings team and has been super successful. Zay Jones as well. We know Coach Richard Bailey out at Scotland County is going to run the football. He was averaging at the end of the regular season 25 carries, 25 carries a pop here. We know that he's going to continue to get that as far as Scotland's going to go. A guy that we've really got to consider within that place there. And then Cam at the top here, we've got these two quarterbacks that I feel like have been dueling with great performances all year long. Jaden Davis didn't throw a pick until the middle of the year. Latavius Husky really jumped on the scene early. I was getting calls week 1 after that fantastic Gaffney performance against Gaffney. These two guys have been doing it all year. What are your chances you think that they may make the top 3 here?
Pretty good. These two guys, like you mentioned, they're I'd say they're probably the top 2 without question right now. One thing people got to remember: Jaden threw 3 interceptions in one game, and I think he's only got 5 or 6 on the year. So this is it's gonna be interesting to see who's selected between these two. But I mean, Natavius, he just kind of does it all. I mean, he's like the Lamar Jackson sort of for his team, can run the ball very well, runs hard, but also very accurate in this pass game. So I mean, you can't go wrong with either one. I'll be interested to see who you guys choose.
Sure. So again, a worthy Elite Eight here. I'm excited to see what it looks like when we finish this up. A reminder: we announced the winner for Mr. Football on Tuesday, December 5th. So get ready for that. I think we have 8 worthy candidates. We're going to have to take the task of really cutting it through 3. I'll get Cameron Williams' opinion. I'll get the brain trust that we have here. So we look forward to a great finale here as we get closer to announcing Mr. Football for the 2023 season.
All right, man. Here we are
brother.
in the 3 shot. We know what time of the show it is. Let's lock the door.
Welcome to another edition of Thunderdome.
All right, man. Here we
I think
are.
I was so impressed with your beard. I think I was so impressed with his beard back in the day. We switched roles. My hair went like this. His hair went like this. It was crazy.
You know how it goes.
All right,
All
sorry.
right, man. Here we are heading into round 2 of the season. Can we believe it? I feel like this season just started last week, and here we are heading into the winter.
Oh yeah.
Just me, or is the time change affecting all of us?
Oh, it's crazy. And then we had homecoming, G-Ho, greatest homecoming on earth at North Carolina A&T. So that combined with the time changes led to a very sleepy Monday. But we're trying to make it into Tuesday.
Well, here we are, coach versus coach. As always, Coach Griner decided he wanted to defer. So, Coach Grice, you're going to get the ball. Question number 1 here in coach versus coach: would the Panthers be 1-7 if C.J. Stroud and not Bryce Young was the starting quarterback?
Man, so I finally got the chance. I was talking to Griner. I got the Sunday ticket. So, my 49ers won a bye week. So I got the pleasure of watching C.J. Stroud, this past weekend. And just in that game, just the poise that he had. And just for the first time watching the team, and I'll leave this to Griner, to say it, the Panthers would be better off with C.J. Stroud. I don't know a guy on that Texans offense. I lie to you not. I don't know a guy on that offense, and he's throwing to these guys, and you're just looking at him throw the ball, and it's like, yo, this kid is poised in the pocket, being able to scramble out of the pocket, make something happen. They didn't have a kicker, Griner. They did not have a kicker for most of the game, so they're going for it. Anytime they're inside the 20 or 30 in what would be field goal range, he's taking command and doing things that are great. Bryce, they set him up again. He has his struggles. We know about the Panthers' struggles, but Adam Thielen's a guy that can do something. He's well on his way to being one of the top receivers by numbers this year. He has people around him. I think he should be doing a little bit better, but Stroud's been absolutely killing it out there in Houston.
The question is just skewed. I mean, you're wrong. They would be 1-7 with CJ Stroud too. The problem should be, would the Panthers be 1-7 with CJ Stroud? Yeah, don't matter who they could have. That on Peyton Manning reincarnated. It's the problem. The coaching staff and the general manager, the decisions that they made in the offseason were horrendous. We literally took the coach that they fired. They fired that coach. We didn't make him an OC. We promoted him as the head coach, and we said to the defensive guy who was in attendance at West Charlotte this past Friday, let me make that clear, and we said, you know what, go be a part of the San Francisco 49ers and go win your Super Bowl. We don't need you. So 1-7 is not due to Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. It's the decision makings from the higher up. That is the problem.
I'm telling you,
Bryce Young. I'm telling you right now.
You don't know those guys either.
Bryce Young. Okay, Bryce Young will be at the end of the day, 10 years from now, a better quarterback than CJ Stroud.
It's gonna be hard if they can't keep him upright.
His release is just beautiful. He will be fine. He's trying to do things. It's a beautiful thing to watch. I think his decision, his poise. I think he does a lot of things behind the scenes we don't see. It's just horrendous what we did making that head coach. Like Frank Wright might be a great guy, but he's an OC at best. He's not a head coach. Like I'm telling you right now, I could coach better than that dude as a head coach right now. Promise you.
You're busy right now. So,
well, Sam, we're going to keep it here. Question number 2, coach versus coach for you. Should the NCHSAA play regional games at neutral sites, maybe even more than one game at a site?
I think financially it would make sense if we could pack the house in those situations. If it's a diluted stadium, then no. Then the schools lose too much money, even though they're splitting it down the middle. But neutral sites in the playoffs would be great if the environment was like it was 90s and the 2000s when you could pack it 10, 15,000. I think those kids would enjoy that experience. But as of right now, I don't think it does anything because too many people when it gets cold. I mean, even West Charlotte, just from my own experience this past game, we're in the playoffs and the attendance was at 50% rate than what it normally was. And I think it wouldn't do it any justice. It's all about making money for these schools and programs, but it'd be really cool if we had 10 to 15,000 fans showing up one of these neutral sites. Without a doubt, it would be fantastic.
Griner, absolutely not. Get your butt in this regional final game. Like we know you're going to get there, eventually. Get you a team that played in the upset. And I promise you, I'm going to be able to hold signs to get people in that stands. You need people to come out there where some of those schools from the other side of the town don't feel so comfortable coming in that stadium and parking and going down Dr. Weber and going down to Ford. You need that home where you are to make sure people know they got to go park it out there behind the trees. It looks new, but some of the parts ain't new around there, if you know what I mean. You need that home field advantage for people coming in there on edge, fans scared to make that trip. That is important. And the fact that we're taking that out, it bothers me. And again, I remember, what was it? The Chambers Myers Park, I think it was the regional final, played at Mallet Creek, I think it was. That was bothersome just because there was a little mud or the grass wasn't properly maintained to the city specifications. Doing those things kind of takes the essence out of it. And again, it didn't change the result, in my opinion. It was a great ball game, but it's one that should have been played at someone's specific site. You win that game. You guys fight hard all year. Granted, you've been on here, dang, about getting in trouble trying to play games at home. Don't give that freaking game away to go play at a neutral site.
All right. I remember my couple years coaching in Texas, and a lot of the games were played in neutral sites. And of course, teams are 5, 6, 7 hours apart, so you kind of understand the necessity of it. But I love those big regional stadiums. I still think Charlotte should have maybe 1 or 2 regional stadiums within the city for some of these big games. But I like the neutral site idea. But anyway, coach versus coach, let's wrap it up right here. Coach Grice, going to stick with you. What are the downsides, if any, to having so many all-star games this December?
The downside is some people don't know their place. That's the downside. I think that people should attack these all-star games in a different way. I've screamed it for so long. I just want guaranteed injury. If someone takes my idea, I would love these games outside of the city. So like a Cabarrus County versus Iredale, a Gaston versus Rowan, just challenge where it highlights these kids from these counties that have been just doing work and been great. And just some of those guys maybe that you're not aware of. A guy I think about is Jordan Howell from Mooresville, Burnsville this past year. He's a freshman basically starting at South Carolina State and absolutely killing and getting it right, and knowing maybe a little bit of the backstory of how, those guys really pushing him and getting him down there. That's a kid that needs, an all-star game. These other guys are kids that need all-star games just to be able to, to be shown, what they need to do. But the problem is too many of these games are trying to compete against each other and trying to lure kids away. And now you look at certain games that are trying to go after the same objective, but really failing. And I think that to me is the problem. Even the East-West game, and growing up a 336 Greensboro boy, not having that game in the summer, I don't care if it's late. I don't care all the negatives that you people that aren't from Greensboro are saying or aren't from these places where they're pulling kids from. It's crap. It's crap, honestly. Like, those games should be played when they're supposed to, bringing in those kids that maybe y'all don't know about. Maybe they're unsung. Maybe they've been fresh faces on here. But dang it, those are kids that need to be in that game played in the summer where they've got the spotlight.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to disagree with the way you broke it down, Grace. I think that the Shrine Bowl is the most disappointing thing. Growing up, even when I played in high school, I mean, it was such a great publicity deal that they did, hosting at the local high schools, and they had it at Butler High School. I mean, I missed that aspect when you really had the best players from North Carolina and South Carolina were guaranteed playing in this. Even if they're playing an All-American game a week later or 2 weeks later after that, they were playing in the Shrine Bowl. Right now, most of the team, the guys know, nobody hurting. The guys that made the Shrine Bowl, congratulations. But, I mean, I don't think there's one person on the roster from Charlotte. You're trying to tell me Charlotte doesn't have some of the best football players? I mean, could be wrong on that. It's just we're not doing it justice. I think the Queen City Bowl is doing a good job of promoting and things, but I would love the idea. Let's do, you got North Carolina versus South Carolina, but I would absolutely love city versus city or county versus county.
Oh, yeah.
That would be that. If you want to have multiple games, let's get the coaches together. You want to be fired up about where you're coaching at? Like, we got better football brand than you guys. You would have some really good stuff going on right there. A lot of people would go out and watch that game if you had Union County versus daggone Charlotte or whatever the case may be.
10 years ago, I didn't believe that, but I do today.
Come on, Guru.
Yeah, 10 years ago, I did not believe that, but I do today. And I've been a long time supporter of the Shrine Bowl, but you're right, man. It's just not the same game that it used to be. But I would get in line to see, a Greensboro versus Winston or a Triad versus Charlotte All-Star game, or let's just say Cabarrus versus Rowan or Union versus Yancey.
That would give us some spice. And I think the Queen City Senior Bowl would probably be the most likely bowl to do something like that.
Or we could even do, like, let's regionalize it. Let's say the Sandhills, including like Richmond, Fayetteville, like a Sandhills versus the Metrolina or something like that.
No, I'd be all for that. I love that idea.
I think the Queen City Bowl could do that. They could say Charlotte versus different surrounding counties every year.
Yeah, Charlotte versus the world. Charlotte versus the world. All right, Superstar, what's your final word?
Final word is dadgummit, don't let the cold beat us. We say winter is coming, but go support your teams if they're in the second round, no matter where they're at. West Charlotte, Independence. If you got to travel, it is important. Looking in the stands and seeing a crowd pack energizes a team. If you're on a away team, home team, it doesn't matter. I think that you'll never get this time back. It might be the last game that they play, and I don't think we do it enough justice. We get too time consumed. We have to go do something else. Most of these games are played at 7:30. You can get there. Let's bring high school football back. Don't watch it on TV. Go get you a hot dog, get you some fish, whatever the case may be. Bring the family. Make it a family deal, and you'll enjoy it. Go to your local high school football game. Support your team.
Make the fish 2 for $1, and you might get.
Hey, man, and I got to say this just for the record. I wasn't laughing at you, Griner. We need to get the Patreon site up because this chat right here straight up fire. So
I can't see that. I hear y'all giggling, but I'm trying to look at the day on camera. I'm like,
I'm watching. It's crazy. Hey, thanks y'all for watching. We'll be back next week. We'll have the whole crew back. We're gonna break down football next week. We're gonna turn the guru loose. But thanks for watching. That's Sam, the coach. That's Griner, the number 2 voice high school football. That's the guru, Chris Hughes, the number 1 voice high school football. I'm Langston, and we are Talking Preps.